My name is Jason Salyer. Welcome back. I'm all about camping in a hammock. I think it's great getting up off the ground, especially in the warm summer months. But occasionally you come across a situation where there's just not a lot of trees around. Maybe there's only a single tree. Maybe there's just tiny little saplings. And I've done a video on how to rig up your hammock with just small saplings. But now we're going to talk about an alternative technique that we can use to set up our hammock if there's just maybe just a single big tree and nothing really else. All right, so if you ever want to drag a bundle of sticks like this back to camp, you know, or wherever you plan on taking them, it can be tricky sometimes just because they're pretty unwieldy. If you ever try to shoulder a stack of these, you know what I'm talking about. It just kind of, they all spread out and go everywhere. Apologize for the road noise. We're on our newly acquired property and it's right here next to a road, but I think you can tolerate that for this short video. But anyway, so what you do is you take a piece of paracord, which is probably the best kind of cord for something like this, and you put a small knot in the end of it, just like that. Just a simple overhand knot. And then I'll make myself a loop. I'll twist it over and make a loop, and I'll take this portion with that knot in it and I'll stick it through and I'll start pulling on it. I just won't let it go all the way through. I'll make that knot stop right there, and that's what keeps it together. And then when I want to get that thing undone, I just pull on that knot, that little overhand knot, and it all comes undone. So again, I make a loop like so, hold that, and I take this portion right here, stick it through, and pull until I've got myself a loop just like that that's easily untied. And then from there, I'll grab the main portion of the line and go through, and now I've got myself a slip loop that will tighten up on anything. And that's what I'm going to use to hold all of this together. So I'll stick all the ends of my my poles here through here, and then I'll snug it up. This works good for any, like if you're dragging something, if you're using like a four-wheeler or something like that and you were dragging this stuff behind it, or a tractor or anything like that, this works for that as well. But if you're going to do something like that, you'd want to secure it even more. So you cinch that up just like that, and then you'll come up here just a little bit further ahead and you'll do basically like a hitch, a half hitch. So you'll make yourself a loop, just like that. It's not a knot, it's just a loop. And then I'll put it over all of the ends. And then when I pull on this, you see what it does? It cinches it up again. So now not only is this binding it, this portion of the knot, this is also binding it here, and that will never come undone as long as there's tension on it. If I'm pulling that by the tractor or whatever, it's not going to come loose, and I can drag that through the woods pretty easily. And what I'll do with the rest of my section of line here is I'll do a clove hitch. Clove hitch is a simple, I take a bite in the line right here, maybe just far enough so it's not hitting me in the back of my legs. I'll make a bite in the line, I'll turn it over on itself like that. I'll grab it and I'll make this loop like so. And once that's tight, that's really all you're gonna need. Just the friction on the line itself is gonna be enough to hold on to it. And then I can just, with the rest of my line here, I don't have a whole lot extra. I can just kind of wrap it around the stick just to give myself a little bit extra handhold if I wanted it, or just to get it out of the way. Wrap the remainder of the cordage around here. And now I've got myself a nice handle that doesn't slip, and I can pull all this stuff easily through this thick underbrush without having any problem. I've got my 3 poles laid out here on the ground. They're approximately 8-ish, 9 feet long, something like that. Probably get away with a little bit shorter, but this is going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these things together in a very specific way that's going to allow me to untie it and get my cordage back. A lot of people lash things together, tripods and whatnot, with, you know, their paracord or bank line, but then they're forced to just cut the line when they're finished, and I don't like to do that if I can help it. So what I've done is lay 2 of my poles out parallel to one another, evenly matched up, evenly spaced like that. And the other one, I'm going, and that's the small end up. And the other one I'm going to lay kind of opposite to it and lay it right in the middle of those 2. So I've got one out one direction and 2 the other way. And I'm going to come to the middle of them right here. So equidistant from this end and equidistant from that end right there. I'm gonna come to the middle. I'm gonna take my cordage through, give myself plenty of space. I've got plenty here, more than enough, so it's not gonna be, I'm not gonna be short at all. And then I'm just gonna do, just like I'm starting to tie my shoes, I'm gonna cross the line over and snug it up, like so. And then I'm gonna wrap that tag end around one more time, like so, and do exactly that same thing. Cross the line over, snug it up. So it doesn't make a knot, it doesn't make a square knot. It's not something that I can't untie. And then I'm just gonna tie my shoes. It's okay if it's a little bit loose, it doesn't really matter because in just a second you'll see why. And I just tie my shoes like that, nice and snug. It's not gonna go anywhere, and then it's super easily untied just like you would if you were gonna untie your shoes. The rest of my line here, I can just kind of coil up around my fingers to manage it, keep it from getting all crazy tangled up, or just use a shorter piece of cordage, but this is what I had. Like that, and that manages that. Now, as I stand it up, I'm going to stand it up from the middle right here, and I'm going to allow this one to come down through the middle, and that's going to make this extremely tight here in the middle. It's going to kind of twist that cordage, and it's going to twist it and make it really, really tight, a tight binding that's not going to come undone. And as I spread out my legs of my tripod here, it's going to make it even tighter, just like that. If you wanted to point the ends, sharpen the ends of your tripod, you could do that. But I don't think that's going to be necessary with the ground being as soft as it is. So I'll just kind of spread these out a little bit, get them stuck in the ground, and we'll give it the old test rig. Piece of cake. So it works. Something like that. All right, so let's say you've only got a single tree. Let's say you're on the edge of a field, maybe like this one behind me, and you've only got a single tree, you're out in the middle of that field, whatever, and there's just not a whole lot of options, and you were planning on hammock camping. So I've kind of simulated that here. I've got myself a tree, pretend that I'm not in the forest, and this is the only tree around here for a long ways. The only sturdy enough tree that I could find to tie my hammock to anyway. And then I found all these saplings and I made myself a tripod. I got into a sort of a mini argument on my last hammock video. The guy basically told me that, oh, all you have to do instead of trying to figure out how to tie your hammock up between all these saplings is you just make yourself a couple of tripods and then tie the ends to your top of the tripods and you're good to go. And I tried to explain to him that if I did that, basically it would just pull the top ends of the tripods together and I would hit the ground. And he told me that I basically needed a lesson in physics because the force would be being applied down and not inwards. So I'm going to demonstrate exactly what would happen if if you do what he was trying to insist I needed to do, is this right here. So that's exactly what happens. The top of the tripod gets pulled inward. Now, some of you out there are saying, oh, well, you need to just reposition your tripod so that that one arm is towards the inside. So that's what we'll do. Well, I think it will help. And if you made your tripod big enough, like giant enough, this might actually work. Like where these bottom pieces of your tripod, these poles, if the other one, imagine another tripod right here, if it was touching that one, I think maybe that might work. And it, oh gosh, there's no way. I mean, the tripod would have to be so gigantic, it just will not work. You have to either tie this top portion of the tripod guy lined out to something else, either a giant big stake in the ground, something really strong, or out to another sapling or another tree, something. Or you can do what I'm about to do, and that is put a pole from right here across to the other side. Well, that worked out good. Look at that, the fork in the tree. This right there. So what I'll do is I'll tie those together bring this out, get that set in the ground. You see how I've got this pole here lodged against this one right here, kind of wedged against it? That's going to help keep it from being pulled inward as well. And that was kind of by design right there. And I'll just tie it off by tying my shoes again. And that's just a nice secure lashing right there that I don't think is going to go anywhere, but we're about to find out. There's that. Now we'll see if this will support us. There we go. So our lashings held. It's got those that's important. Get the lashings on this pole to be extremely tight. If it's not, and that slips, then your tripod's just gonna whack you in your melon when you get in it. You can rig your tarp up over this ridge pole and it's ready to go. Just stake out your corners of your tarp and you've got your hammock shelter set up, ready to rock. And I think it's a pretty good one. It's really, really sturdy. I mean, that ain't going nowhere. That's a really sturdy setup and it works really well. However, this did take significantly more time than just the sapling setup that I did in a previous video. And you had to cut down a few trees, a few small saplings to make that happen. I've got an abundance here on my property. I'm not on national forest or anything like that. You'd be fined heavily for doing this on public land of some sort. So if you've got access to trees and saplings and natural resources like this, it's not really that big a deal, but for the most part, you're gonna have a hard time making this happen. Tying up to the small saplings like I did in the previous video, super easy, really simple, but this is just another tool that you can put in your tool belt. And if you're short on trees and planning on hammock camping, this is a good way to do it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you leave us a comment. Tell me what you think of this setup. Is it practical, impractical? And if you have nothing to say about that, leave us a comment anyway. Today's comment is going to be, how do you feel about the letter X? I think it's a stupid letter. It could be replaced by C. It could be replaced by a K. It could be replaced by a CK. There's absolutely no situation where you couldn't get rid of the letter X and still go on with life. So just let me know how you feel.